Hello, everyone, and welcome to the most important episode of the Devoid Fantasy League so far. Welcome to the first month pay-per-views for the Devoid Fantasy League. Now, pay-per-views are, of course, still segment cards, but these are high-impact, super important cards that mean a lot to our company. So, do either of you have anything you want to say before we get into our pay-per-views?
I would say that fans need to appreciate the art of using all your resources in a go-home show. So be prepared, as the PPV should be a fun show, but it may not have all the fireworks that you saw on the regular show. You got to reward the regular fans, but PPV should be a fun night.
Mm-hmm. Micah, anything you want to say?
I forget what I named mine, but it's probably going to be better than James's.
Well, since you're going first, it's time for All Star Combat Wrestling Presents Genesis.
Genesis,
right, sorry. Just so it's not stolen from Impact.
No, it's Genesis. It's different. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Genesis, of course. It's the whole... it's the first pay-per-view. It's pretty good. All right. It's the first. It's not the opening show, but this is like how you make a real impact. Am I right? Genesis. So, match number 1 for the show on social media, because why not? The matches of the semifinals were decided, but I'll leave it a little suspense for you guys because you don't follow All Star Combat Wrestling on social media. So first match, Walter versus Will Osprey in the first semifinal match of the night. So match starts, and Osprey dances around as Walter just stares at Will Osprey. He's just like, who the fuck is this guy? Osprey then kicks at Walter, who winces in pain because the bad ankle, and then Osprey then fakes a head kick and then kicks Walter again in the calf. Osprey attempts a third kick, but he went to the well too many times, and Walter dodges backwards and rugby tackles Osprey to the ground. Walter then unleashes a barrage of elbows, punches, chops, and body knees to Osprey, who wiggles and worms his way over to the ropes over a course of minutes. Osprey then rolls out of the ring, and Walter follows. Osprey is then Irish whipped into the steel post, but he flips off of it over Walter and chop blocks at his injured ankle. Walter collapses, and Osprey goes to the top rope, and he jumps. And in midair, Walter hits Osprey with a thunderous chop. He then goes to the middle rope and connects with a falling senton for the victory. Walter advancing to the finals. We then have our second semifinal match, the undefeated Okada versus the undefeated Hook. Match begins, and Okada immediately hits Hook with a shotgun dropkick and covers him. Hook kicks out, and Okada goes on the attack again, using stiff elbows and punches to cut up Hook. Hook starts bleeding. As Pat McAfee says, Hook can see a river of red, but Okada wants to see an ocean. Okada starts hitting suplexes on Hook, making it a point to hit a different one every time. He hits a German suplex, a belly-to-belly suplex, a release suplex. Okada then picks up Hook's limp body and runs to the ropes. And in a last gasp effort, Hook swings a wild clothesline at Okada, which connects, and both men fall to the mat. Okada then slowly gets up and is able to hit a jumping tombstone and covers Hook. Hook kicks out at 2.5, and Okada lifts him up. He hits a German suplex on Hook and then goes in the position to hit another one and then thinks about it. He then puts Hook on his shoulders and hits a one-winged angel for the pinfall victory. Okada moving on to the finals. We then get a grudge match set up from last week between Griff Garrison, accompanied by Don Callis, and Jey Uso. Excalibur says that both men are looking for their first win of this year. The match begins and Uso goes for a takedown, but Griff uses his natural athleticism to reverse the takedown into a Fujiwara armbar. As Jay starts to turn, Callis spots this and calls it out, so Griff transitions into a triangle submission. He then uses his strength to get on top of Uso, still in the submission, stretching out Uso's arm. Jay is flailing around, he's moving his hand very radically, and he accidentally pokes Griff in the eye, who has to break the hold. Uso holds his injured ribs as he gets up and attacks Griff's head, close fist punching his forehead. Griff starts to bleed and is dazed by Uso's brute attacks. He lunges at Uso, who defends with a knee that clocks Griff square in the jaw. Uso then sets up for a spear, but Callis grabs Uso's leg. Uso is able to thwart off Callis, but not enough time for Griff to hit a discus lariat into a powerbomb for the pinfall victory. Griff Garrison getting his first win of the year. We then move on to the number one contender battle royal between Hangman Adam Page, Xavier Woods, Zack Sabre Jr., Daniel Garcia, Gable Stevenson, and Cody. The match starts and Cody immediately eliminates Xavier Woods, and everybody loves it. Hangman backs out of the ring, going through the middle ropes towards the ringside area. Gable Stevenson and Zack Sabre Jr. grapple, with Sabre Jr. backpack choking Stevenson. Gable goes to the ropes, and a surprise hook pulls Zack off Gable, so Zack is on the apron. Zack then kicks Hook, and Gable bull rushes Zack off the apron, eliminating Zack Sabre Jr. Cody then lifts up Daniel Garcia, but before he can eliminate the smaller opponent, Hangman eliminates Cody from behind, and Garcia is just able to catch the middle rope to save himself. Cody shrugs off his loss and walks to the back, giving fans high fives up the ramp, and gives his weight belt to a small child. Garcia and Hangman then team up to eliminate Gable Stevenson, who is overpowered by Garcia and Hangman's combined efforts. Hangman starts to celebrate, but Garcia capitalizes and immediately eliminates Hangman Page afterwards, Daniel Garcia becoming a number one contender. Post-match, it's shown on the Titantron that Walter is in the doctor's room, and he's getting his ankle severely taped up, suffering injuries from before. We then move into another grudge match, Thunder Rosa versus Sasha Banks. As Thunder Rosa makes her entrance, Banks comes from behind and blindsides her. She throws Rosa into the steel steps and the metal railing barricade before throwing her back into the ring. Banks then picks up Thunder Rosa and yells at her, "It's boss time, motherfucker." Rosa then hits a Coda de los Muertes for the shock pinfall victory out of complete nowhere. Post-match, Sasha attacks Rosa who is celebrating and repeatedly knees her in the body. And then she close fist punches Rosa in the head, dropping her. And then she leaves, Rosa unconscious. It's now time for the main event. The championship is shown. It's quite average, from being honest. We don't need the best championship looking belts because we have the best champions. So, Okada versus Walter. Osprey accompanying Okada. Okada begins the match with an Imanari roll, which is a rolling heel hook that catches Walter by surprise. Walter moves to the ropes, and Okada holds until 4. On his way out, he loosens the laces of Walter's boot. Okada then slides Walter's boot off, revealing a wrap. Not just one wrap, 2 wraps. Okada then stops on the ankle until Walter rolls out of the ring in pain. Okada goes to the top rope and hits a missile dropkick that plunges Walter through the steel barricade. Walter, writhing in pain, stands up but cannot put pressure on his right leg. He barely gets back into the ring to break the count, but is distracted by Will Osprey, who is now carrying a crowbar. Walter fights off Osprey, but Okada takes advantage and hits a release German suplex, dropping Walter on his neck. Okada then struggles to pick up Walter, who is practically dead weight by now. Walter swings wildly a chop at Okada, who ducks and chop blocks at Walter's injured ankle. Okada then hits a Rainmaker, but Walter only drops to one knee. Okada holds onto the wrist and connects with another Rainmaker. Walter is now on both knees, head leaning on Okada's chest. Okada then hits one last Rainmaker for the pinfall victory and becomes the inaugural heavyweight champion. The greatest champion in All-Star Combat history, Pat McAfee exclaims.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I like the whole tournament.
Kazuchika Okada, am I right?
I like the tournament being on the show. I like the championship being crowned in the main event. Okada's a good choice, obviously.
Yeah. James?
Yeah. Sorry. Love that pay-per-view. I thought, honestly, I really liked that number one contenders battle royal. That was probably my favorite part of it. It's because I love battle royals. But no, honestly, putting kayfabe aside, that was a well job done, Micah.
Well, should we get into the next pay-per-view, which is, of course, Screw Vince McMahon Wrestling presents the PPV.
The PPV.
The PPV.
Perfect. The PPV with the two main competitors on the poster.
On
That
the
is
fucking show, kid.
On the fucking show.
So, Screw Vince McMahon Wrestling presents the PPV. The crowd shines on the people. We got JR and King in the commentary booth. You know, we got JR going crazy. Hello, it's going to be a slobber knocker. All that stuff. The first match starts off. Seth Rollins comes out. We kind of forgot Seth Rollins was in this company just a little bit over the past couple weeks. But he's coming out, and he is going to be facing Mr. Darby Allin. Now, I don't know if y'all remember, but last week on TV, Seth Rollins hit Darby's finisher to win the match. That's how he won. So this match starts off. They go at it pretty hard right from the get-go. A lot of moves off the second rope this time. So a lot of, maybe they do a little old school, walk across the second rope, do this little thing, chop the other guy. Some top turnbuckle moves, some Irish whips into the corner, a lot of attacking the same body part. But in the end, it is not Seth Rollins that wins. It is, in fact, Darby Allin that hits his own finisher on Seth Rollins and gets the pin. 1, 2, 3. So Seth Rollins gets his little SVM moment. Not WrestleMania moment, an SVM moment, if you will, last week. But in the end, Darby Allin with the win there. Next, we have another singles match. We have Drew McIntyre coming out to face Orange Cassidy. We got that match coming on. So that match is also decently long. I'd say this one is closer to about 15 minutes, though, but a lot of action packed into a small time frame. More of a powerhouse battle. Drew kind of uses a lot of his powerful moves. A lot of it is sort of the David versus Goliath storyline. So Drew is David, Orange Cassidy's Goliath. Drew just gets a lot of real hard-hitting hits on Orange Cassidy. And then the last 5 minutes of the match is Orange Cassidy sort of finding his way back and hitting his finisher to win it at the end. So Orange Cassidy gets the pinfall over Drew. McIntyre at the PPV. Next, we have a tag team match. And that will be AJ Styles' henchmen, John Moxley and Matt Cardona. AJ Styles' henchmen will come out there, and they will face Finn Balor and Keith Lee. So this is going to be fun. So this is a tag match. I forget if his company has tag titles, but if they do, this might be a tag title match. So they go back and forth. It starts off Balor and Moxley start off the match, and they started off pretty well. And then after a while, Keith Lee comes in, and he faces Matt Cardona. And Matt Cardona is just sort of Keith Lee's punching bag. He's unfortunately filled that role many times throughout his career. And this PPV is no different. So Matt Cardona goes out there, gets kind of obliterated by Keith Lee. And then Balor and Moxley come back in to close the match. And they have a lot of they do the thing where they're in the middle and they just kind of trade right hands after a while. And Moxley ends up winning that. And then Moxley sees Finn Balor down, kind of looks around. Does he go for dirty deeds? He tries. He can't get it. Moxley doesn't get dirty deeds. Balor slips under the bottom rope, jumps up to the top rope, and hits his finisher on the fly. Pretty much goes right under the bottom rope, jumps onto the top rope, right onto Moxley. Moxley doesn't even really have time to process what happened. Bang! 1, 2, 3. Finn Balor and Keith Lee bring it home for Screw Vince McMahon Wrestling. Next, we have a promo. We have a promo in the pay-per-view, and it's somewhat advertising. It is for the company, though. The company is advertising that on the new episode of our regular show, our weekly show, there's going to be a new wrestler that makes their debut. So we're going to see someone new in SVM Wrestling. What kind of capacity? What, kind of pedigree? Even what gender? We don't even know if this new superstar is going to be part of the men's division or the women's division. We got to figure that out. So some very big implications, and we'll have some board meetings soon to decide who exactly that will be. But SVM's looking to debut new superstar next episode of their weekly show. So watch if you're watching this pay-per-view right now. Next, we have a match for the women's title. And it is Ruby Soho versus Britt Baker. A match we've all seen. But it is once again here at the PPV. And so they go back and forth for about 15 minutes. It's a pretty high-flying match. A lot of aerial moves, very similar to Darby Allin. But this is honestly a fun because they just kind of go back and forth for a while, and no one really gets an upper hand. That's why it's fun. There's not really a long amount of time that someone has an upper hand, because right when someone gets one, another person comes in and takes them down a peg. And so they go back and forth for a while, where in the end, Britt Baker ends up winning. So she will still be your women's champ here in SVM. So I'm gonna notate that Britt Baker is now the champion. And for some reason, when I did that, it put Britt Baker with a copyright because I tried to do parentheses C end parentheses, but it just made that a copyright. But let it be known that Britt Baker is champion, not copywritten in this promotion. Now, have our main event of the night. We have Brock Lesnar enter first with his theme music. Not The Rock's theme music like last week, but he does have The Rock with him. So it is Brock Rock versus AJ Styles. The phenomenal AJ Styles walks out to the ring. He has a battered and beaten Moxley and Cardona, but they look like they're in really rough shape. They're both like wrapped up and they're kind of limping down to the ring. And so this match starts. The first 10 minutes or so are really, they're kind of slow, to be honest. First 10 minutes are really slow. It is a very much stereotypical Brock Lesnar match. A lot of suplexing, a lot of punching, a couple of Irish whip spears or slams. And then after about 10 minutes, Brock takes AJ outside the ring. They do a couple of spots outside. And while they're spots outside, The Rock actually takes Moxley and Cardona and starts beating them up bad enough that they run to the back. So they run to the back. Now AJ Styles is out here all alone with Brock and Rock. And so the match continues for like 5 more minutes, and AJ Styles is really looking for a helping hand. And they go back and forth, and there's a spot where AJ Styles, he's getting ready to hit a flip over the top rope outside the ring at Brock. And as he's trying to look at the crowd and build them up, The Rock is down over in the other corner. Paul Heyman comes out, runs down the ramp, and takes Brock Lesnar's spot and takes the hit for Brock Lesnar. And AJ Styles lands on Paul Heyman. And we have a real interesting spot here because then Brock picks Paul Heyman up. The Rock picks AJ Styles up. Both groups of men look at each other for about 10 seconds trying to figure out what is going on here. And then Paul Heyman and AJ Styles, AJ Styles gets in the ring. Paul Heyman follows. The Brock and Rock argue for long enough that they almost get counted out. And then Brock gets into the ring at 9. But AJ Styles hits the Styles Clash. 1, 2, 3. AJ Styles with Paul Heyman is your new champion. So AJ will get managed by Paul. Brock and Rock are looking at each other pretty upset. So even though they lost, they may still not be together for much longer. We'll see what happens. But there you have it, folks. That's your ending. Paul Heyman joins AJ Styles. AJ Styles still retains Brock Rock. A little tension in the feud. What happens next? New superstar? Next week? Find out on SVM Wrestling. What do you think? Fun pay-per-view?
I can't hear you, Micah.
Yeah, just let us talk about it for a second. I liked it.
I really liked it too. I really like the tension building now between Brock Rock.
Yes. Yeah, the tension between Brock Rock. I like that Heyman's in the picture now. He still might do stuff with Penta El Cerro, but
I was going to say, what does this mean for Penta and for Moxley and Cardona? There's so many questions.
There's a lot of questions. A lot of questions to be answered. Yes, I guess you will have to watch. I guess I'll have to write.
Oh, that's good. All right, so we're going to move on now to our last pay-per-view, which is, of course, the Global Wrestling League presents Fresh Start. And we're going to immediately kick it off with a ladder match for the Global Wrestling League Tag Team World Championships. This is the culmination of the tournament that's taken place over the past 4 weeks. Coming out first, of course, is Edge and Christian Cage who come out with their very own ladder that they got from backstage, except this one has some rungs that are wrapped in barbed wire. The New Generation come out next, and they don't have a special ladder. They just come out to the ring. The match begins, and the teams go at each other right away, with Harry Smith hitting Christian with a big clothesline and a shot with a ladder. Pillman gets some flying moves in there at some point, hitting his high fly flow off the top of a ladder onto Edge. When we get to the finish of the match, Christian sets up a table and their special ladder with barbed wire on it in the ring. He climbs a ladder that Harry Smith is already on the top of and hits an unprettier from the top of the ladder down to the structure of table and barbed wire. Christian then gets back up, climbs the ladder, and grabs the belts, Edge and Christian Cage becoming your first ever Global Wrestling League Tag Team World Champions. We now go to our next match. The announcer says, the following contest is scheduled for one fall, where the winner will become the #1 contender to the Global Wrestling League National Championship. The first person out to the ring, this is an unannounced match. Everyone is shocked. The first person out to the ring is Kota Ibushi. Taz and D'Lo on commentary put over Kota Ibushi's accomplishments in the wrestling industry over the past so many years he's been wrestling, and really put over how important Kota Ibushi was and is to wrestling in general. And his opponent coming out with a mic in hand is Jonathan Gresham. Jonathan Gresham says that he is there to prove to Shayna Baszler that he is not to be taken lightly, and also to prove that Kota Ibushi isn't worth shit. There isn't much to say about this match story-wise other than the finish, where Jonathan Gresham goes to hit his normal finisher onto Kota Ibushi, but at the last minute changes his mind and hits a Kirifuda clutch on Kota Ibushi, saying, here's a sneak preview, Shayna, before Ibushi passes out, and Jonathan Gresham gets the win. Jonathan Gresham, the #1 contender for the national championship, and seemingly going after Shayna Baszler too, who, Shayna Baszler, reminder, is in the national championship match tonight, but there's no guarantee that she's leaving with the championship. Up next, a grudge match as Chad Gable takes on Sami Callihan. Sami Callihan, a few weeks ago, viciously attacked Chad Gable backstage just to prove a point. It takes approximately 0 seconds for weapons to get involved in this match. Sami comes to the ring with a shopping cart full of weapons, trash can, baseball bat, all that stuff that like any hardcore division guy would come to the ring with. Sami uses that trash can at the beginning of the match as a battering ram to go right into Gable's midsection, to which Gable responds to by sliding to the outside of the ring and going under the ring and grabbing a chair. When he gets back in the ring, Sami Callihan immediately hits him with a midsection swing with the bat. Gable is on the ground now, and Sami goes to hit with a strike, which Gable responds by tripping up the leg. Now they're doing one of those things where they both stand up at the same time and look at each other, and the crowd's like, oh, this match is getting started. Yeah. Ricochet and Will Osprey style. They have a standard back and forth no DQ match for a little bit. For the finish, Gable suplexes Sami Callihan on the outside. Then he climbs to the top rope to hit a moonsault to the outside, but Sami moves out of the way. He lays Gable on the announce table and goes to hit Gable with a moonsault of his own, but Josh Alexander saves Gable out of nowhere, causing Sami Callihan alone to crash through the table. Alexander shakes Gable's hand before going away. Gable throws Callihan into the ring and goes for a pin, but Sami kicks out at 2. Sami reverses an ankle lock attempt and lays out Gable with a strong strike. He then sets Gable up to do the thing he did to Eddie Edwards that one time that got Impact taken off of Twitch, but Gable moves at the last second and hits Sami Callihan with an ankle slam before locking in the ankle lock for a win. Chad Gable getting his first win in the Global Wrestling League. Out next is Enzo Amore and Big Cass, who come out unannounced for a promo. They say, the stage for Fresh Start sucks ass, and nobody should want to be here. Enzo says something that is somehow both incoherent and charismatic, and the crowd is booing him every second of it. He is interrupted by Rhea Ripley, who says Enzo Amore is very small, and she'll kick his ass in a match just to shut him up. They get a ref out there. the match starts. She kicks his ass, and he shuts up. Rhea Ripley defeats Enzo Amore in an unannounced short squash. Our semi-main event, Fatal 4-Way for the Global Wrestling League National Championship. Shayna Baszler will be taking on Julius Creed, Josh Alexander, and Dark Order's number 10. As soon as the entrances start, we notice that 10 is coming out with a much more distressed-looking mask, like ripped apart, lots of red on it and whatnot. And Taz and D'Lo bring up the fact that this is the first time in GWL that Dark Order's number 10 has been out there without Evil Uno at all, nearby, at ringside, on commentary, anything. When the bell rings, 10 and Creed immediately go for Josh Alexander and Shayna Baszler and throw them to the outside. Once on the outside, Shayna starts to brutalize Alexander as 10 and Creed just go at each other in the ring. Big, meaty men slapping meat style. Eventually, Shayna gets back in the ring and begins to take control of the match with stiff kicks and punches to the midsection of the two big men. She throws them both out of the ring before bringing Josh Alexander back in. She throws him around with some suplexes for a while before Julius Creed hits Shayna from behind. Creed begins to build momentum with great reversals and suplexes. He hits the first part of his finisher on Shayna before Alexander comes in the ring and hits some Germans onto Creed. On the outside, 10, who is looking even more vicious than ever, is just starting to grab a fuck ton of weapons. Just as many weapons as he can find. He's angry. 10 gets in the ring and starts battering Julius Creed in the head on the outside before he goes after Josh Alexander in the ring. 10 beats him around for a while and sets Alexander up for a chair-assisted bicycle kick when Shayna Baszler throws a chair directly at 10's head out of nowhere and gets him in the Kirifuda clutch for him to immediately pass out. Shayna Baszler is your first ever Global Wrestling League National Champion. After the match, she grabs the mic and says that she has proved tonight that she is not someone to be messed with. She says someone like Jonathan Gresham doesn't even deserve a shot at the title, as he has proven himself to be weak and proven himself to be a failure. She says, "Time for round 3, bitch. See you next week." As we move now to our main event, the culmination of our Global Wrestling League World Championship tournament, Braun Breaker takes on Bryan Danielson. They both get WrestleMania caliber entrances. Braun Breaker getting huge Steiner references. Big sirens are blowing up and wailing like this as Braun Breaker comes to the ring. Danielson enters from the crowd with the final countdown blaring for a special one-off as the entire crowd chants, "You're going to get your fucking head kicked in" at Braun Breaker. The crowd is nuts for Danielson and Breaker as they make their way to the ring. This is a classic face versus face brawl. This is classic Hogan versus Warrior. This is about how Danielson and Breaker won't give up. Neither of them will give up. Danielson gets Breaker in the label lock, which Breaker obviously breaks out of. Breaker hits a Steiner screwdriver onto Danielson. Now, I need to preface, this match is about 45 minutes long. It is, I am not kidding when I say this is a barn burner. The finish, Danielson hits a running knee and goes for the pin. One kick out at 1 from the running knee from Braun Breaker. Danielson gets back in there, hits another running knee. 1, 2, kick out at 2. Braun Breaker kicks out of a running knee at 2 before Danielson says, "Fuck this," hits him in the head a couple more times with some vicious kicks and gets Braun Breaker into a cattle mutilation, which Braun Breaker passes out from, refusing to tap out. Bryan Danielson is your new Global Wrestling League World Champion after a hard fought battle with Braun Breaker to close off fresh start.
Wow. That was I love that. That's a really cool ending because you can do so much with that, you know?
That was the idea. I wanted to leave the field open for the future matches that could happen. What do you think?
Yes.
I'm surprised that Danielson won.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I figured we should have the established star be the first champion, and then the star we want to build up can be the champion either next time or a few times later. The AEW model, if you would.
Yes, yes.
Well, who do you think won? Let us know.
I think I won.
Comments below.
From us here at Specifically Devoid, I have been me. You have been you.
And you've been you.
Bye.